there's always going to be, different problems that just don't resonate with the life that you want to build. When I was roughly 12 or 13 was sexual abuse. I was empty. I was depressed. In order to access my purpose, I first needed to reconcile my pain.
Well, on today's episode, I got an awesome guy who's been traveling all around the United States, made his way to San Diego, and I'm really excited about this episode. I have Jacob Kauffman on the show. He is a men's transformation coach, spiritual guide, the author of Let Love In, The Pain Stops When Truth Starts. We're going to get into that. Jacob, thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. The honor's all mine. We're going to spread some gold today, but you seem like the type of guy to me from talking to you before the show today that you're okay being vulnerable and you're okay being uncomfortable. Is that true?
That is. Yeah, I've developed quite the resilience over the years when it comes to being vulnerable or stepping deeper into vulnerability.
Come on. Well, let's start with, does Jacob Kauffman value most in life?
So integrity, love, and service are my core values. So if we look at it from that simple perspective, those things that matter the most to me. But really, I'm just a conduit. In many ways, there is no Jake Kauffman. There's simply God doing God's will.
Yeah, that's so good. Integrity, love, and service, right? Mm-hmm. What does integrity mean to you?
I think integrity, fundamentally, when you think of your words, what you say and what you do are in alignment with one another. In the coaching space, we call it being a product of your product, being the highest embodied version, what you are inviting other people into.
And then you said love. Mm-hmm. So what does love mean to you?
Well, love is really beautiful because it's multifaceted. There's so many different aspects to love. There's the friendship version of love. There's the romantic version of love. So I think love is many different things, but love is all encompassing. And I think Rumi said it best when he mentioned that your task is not to seek after love, but to seek after and discover the barriers that stand between you and love.
That's so good. And the last one was service. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that's partially why you've embarked on the journey that you're on.
I've felt called to be conduit for transformation. Like yourself, I am a Christian man of faith, but in many respects, the church and Christianity by and large has been caught up rules and morality. It certainly gets you going when it comes to establishing a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? Because you kind of learn the rules. It doesn't take you very far. And so the work that I seek to do with men is to actually transform their hearts, transform their minds, like the Bible talks about, be transformed by which always carries you beyond just a simple conversation of law and order or morality.
It's interesting because in some ways I can agree. I think religiousness, there's a lot of ways that the church has probably abused that and created so many rules that, especially with the younger upcoming generations, they want nothing to do with the church. Therefore, they have no relationship with Jesus, no relationship with God, and they're looking into the world to fill a void inside of them from everything that they can, and still coming back broken. And it sounds like you're doing some amazing work in that space.
I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong or bad about what you just described, although it is incomplete and insufficient when it comes to one's personal development or psychological development. I think it's a necessary part to go out there and to ultimately experience for yourself that all of these things that I thought could fill this internal void, I got all those things, or I've spent a significant amount of time in the pursuit of those things.
Yeah.
I'm left empty and wanting. But it's that experience that causes you to turn to spirituality or to a relationship with God.
Yeah, after you've tried a lot of those things and you still didn't find what you're looking for, you're going to go for a deeper meaning in that.
Correct. Yeah, but it's kind of a part of the journey. If we believe what Viktor Frankl talks about, that life is about three things: love, purpose, and suffering in order to return to love and purpose. Falling off the path, suffering, is a part of it. It's an intrinsic part of coming back to truth or back to love and purpose, which in many respects is just to come back to God. Yeah. If God is perfect love, if he is the highest purpose that we can have in this lifetime is developing a relationship with God, then falling off the path, suffering, searching for all of these different things or searching for happiness in all of these different things and not being able to find it, that's an important part.
And I think about, God is like my father, right? He's a loving father. And what does a loving father want? They want their kid to be joyful and happy and successful in all areas of life. And sometimes, your kids it pains you to watch them do things the wrong way, but sometimes they're on a path. And I think the hope is that he hopes that we learn from it, that we grow through it, that we become better because of it. I think it becomes a problem though. Suffering becomes a problem when it becomes a habitual thing that you continually induce yourself into.
I think there's the fall and there's the recovery from the fall, and both are the mercy of God.
I guess but if you keep having the same fall over and over and over, there's probably some deeper cause to that, right? If it becomes a justification to bring you back to love, I'm just curious your thoughts on it because we went here.
So I don't think it's necessarily a problem. I think the way that we make sense of most human behavior is we judge it or we label it. I don't think it's necessarily a problem. It's just, is it effective or is it ineffective? And in that way, there's no judgment in the conversation, which allows a safe space for that person to step into to really analyze their behavior and determine, is this really in alignment with the life that I want to live or with the goals that I want to accomplish, whatever those goals are.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think it's problem. Hitting rock bottom is arguably the best place.
I hit it.
Yeah. Hitting rock bottom is arguably the best place that you can be.
I just don't want to hit it over and over. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. But, you were getting into something deeper there. And I think that is important, which is if someone continues to find themselves, we'll say, in a pattern, the pattern always reveals the problem, not in a good, bad, right, wrong way, but just in this objective analysis around, is this effective or is this ineffective? When it comes to me creating the life that I want to live or pursuing the calling that's on my heart. And that's kind of where I found myself. And, I talk about this in my book.
Let's get into Let Love In. So guys, we have Jake's book here, Let Love In, and powerful. And, I didn't get to finish it, but parts of it I did read through. And you get really vulnerable in the book. And you share your story, and maybe it would be good. Take us down a little bit of that journey, because you want to be the man that you are today sitting in that chair if you didn't walk through your own journey. So can you share with the audience that doesn't know you a little bit more about what Love In is all about?
Sure.
And what you had to go through and what you're teaching inside of this book?
The book starts off around 10 years ago, when for the first time in my life, I acknowledged that an experience that I went through when I was roughly 12 or 13 was sexual abuse. So for 15 years, I actively and unconsciously worked to avoid this incident and this event, which caused me to avoid the emotions attached to the experience: anger, bitterness, sadness, resentment, which meant that I continued to carry those emotions around with me, even if I wasn't in touch with them, even if I wasn't actively feeling or experiencing them. And so, of course, these emotions started to manifest themselves in my life. And so I started to get, for lack of a better phrase, get stuck. I got stuck at a certain level of success. I got stuck at a certain level of intimacy in romantic relationship. And I found myself self-sabotaging, which is simply to say self-protecting, because that's what self-sabotage is. So I would get to a certain depth in relationship, whether it was a relationship, a romantic relationship, whether it was in my career, because obviously we have a relationship with our job and our work and what we do, our vocation.
Totally.
Anything beyond a certain depth felt like a threat to my nervous system. And so what would I do in order to return to safety? I would self-sabotage the relationship, the job, the career experience, the opportunity, whatever it was, to return to safety, because connection at a very fundamental level after this experience of sexual abuse felt entirely unsafe. Intimate connection, most specifically. And that's obviously regardless of whether it's within the context of a romantic relationship or a friendship or my relationship with my family. It felt like a threat to my system. And so I didn't have the language for it that I do now, obviously, but I started to kind of key in on the fact that, like, I'm repeating these patterns that cause me to sabotage, right? It's the same package, different bow, same song, different dance, one job after another, one relationship after another. I really need to determine what is going on. What is the underlying cause, the internal challenge that's causing me to experience perpetually the same external challenge. Again, just same packaging, different bow.
Right.
And so that had me kind of go down this path, interpersonal work. and healing led me to ultimately, years later, share my story of sexual abuse on social media. After having spent years going through therapy, getting coaching, going through different various workshops and seminars and things like that, I felt called to share my story on social media because after having started my coaching business years prior, I started to key in on the fact that there are a lot of people who have been through some type of abuse, whether it's emotional, physical, sexual, whatever it may be. They just haven't told anybody about it.
Right.
And so I was like, so many people are hiding in fear and they're repressing this incident because they haven't worked through it, because they haven't reconciled it. And what are they doing? They're simply recycling pain from the past and bringing it into the present moment. And that's what I found myself doing years prior. And so I was like, I'm going to share my story on social media, and hopefully that will inspire other people, not necessarily to share it on social media themselves, actually do something about it. Share it with a therapist, with a clinician, with a coach, with a loved one, whatever it may be, so that they could start to work through it, reconcile it, and ultimately move beyond it and transcend it. And when I did, my entire nervous system collapsed. So I literally share my story on social media, and I suffered from what is clinically referred to as an acute nervous system breakdown. The best way to think about it is a panic attack on steroids. I started experiencing vertigo, nausea.
Because you were so vulnerable. You just went and shared that whole thing with the world publicly.
Yep.
And then this hit you.
Correct. Because the level of connection went so far beyond what felt safe to me, my nervous system simply couldn't handle the amount of input, the amount of connection that came with that experience. Because as you can probably imagine, I had friends, family members messaging me, DMing me privately, calling me, people who both knew about it or didn't know about it, asking how I felt, sharing their stories of abuse with me. And it was just too much, too soon, too fast. And throughout the course of the next several months, as you can probably imagine, I had to do some deeper healing on myself to work through the dysregulation, because I started having panic attacks regularly. It was very overwhelming, and it lasted, a long period of time. So I started journaling, and that journaling became this book.
Come on. And now this book is changing people's lives all around the world.
It's truly wild. It's, I think it was Dickens who once said that your calling is your curse. It's the thing that you can't not do.
Yeah.
On some level, I always knew that I've always had a passion for writing. I've always been pretty good at it. And I knew that I was supposed to write a book that would transform people.
Yeah.
And so I wrote about what I did to ultimately transform myself. And so I invite the reader into that journey.
And your mess is your message, and your message is your superpower.
Totally.
And, I believe that what the enemy meant for evil, what happened to you when you were a young boy, was not God, but it's something you had to go through in our natural world. But yet he is now used to fulfill on promises to you to live out your purpose.
Potentially. I mean, if you believe what it says in Isaiah 45:7, you believe that God stands behind both light and dark equally. He is the creator of good, but also the causer of calamity.
Yeah,
so,
I push back personally a little bit on that. I don't think that God wills the darkness of this world. There is a devourer who is out to steal, kill, and destroy us. So bad things do happen to God's people, but I do believe he will use it. And it's okay, we can agree to disagree, but I think that I've watched so many things happen in the world and so many people be like, I just can't believe in God because this happened to me. And and it's like, I think in Isaiah, that's so powerful because people need to understand that even in the darkness, God is still there and he's still with us and he'll still use it for us. So that's just my personal opinion.
Obviously, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I believe that this experience, this pain was given to me by God to transform me into the man that I needed to become, ultimately.
Yeah.
Because slapping a label, good, bad, right, wrong, onto something, ultimately denies that in some way, shape, or form, God is at the heart of it. And God is at the heart of everything. I truly believe that it was a gift at the end of the day. And I don't mean that in a way that's encouraging spiritual bypassing, because I think there's way too much of that, especially in the coaching space nowadays. But ultimately, yes. In order to access my purpose, I first needed to reconcile my pain.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for most people, let me just put it this way. Oftentimes, our greatest is simply an adaptation or an overcompensation to avoid experiencing pain.
I think I see that a lot in the entrepreneur space. Man, I've seen some of the most driven guys I know, the most successful guys I know, and maybe even myself a little bit. That, you know, it's the pain of the past and different things that have happened that, you know, and they'll say like the chip on the shoulder or whatever, but it's been the very thing that has attributed to the drive for many successful people to be where they're at. And you hear it, the dark side, people call it, or there's so many different terminologies and names.
Sure.
This is good, actually. There's a few things I want to hit on because you got some good stuff, bro, and you have, you know, a great mind on this. What's your thoughts on that, you know, as far as what some people call the dark side, what they you call that adapting to that? Like, what is your thoughts in that? Because I know you have a different perspective on it, and I've read some of your content.
Sure.
So I'm curious.
Light and darkness go together. Everything in the universe has an opposite. That's law. So if we just assume that right away, we also assume that we are a part of that equation, which means we have a shadow, which is, in psychological terms, is simply the parts of ourselves that we hide and repress. And when you live in a society that is, we'll call it a performative-based society, that is very driven by the pursuit of success, achievement, accolades, etc., but especially religion, it tees you up for a life of performance, which causes you to inherently, by virtue, repress the less than ideal qualities and characteristics about yourself and accentuate posture and position, the ideal qualities and characteristics about yourself. But what does that do? That creates a pressure cooker because you're actively working on hiding certain things while simultaneously actively working to posture and further position certain things. Well, when you have a pressure cooker like that, you need a coping mechanism. You need a coping mechanism to relieve the pressure.
Wow. I've never heard it put like that, but I love that.
Well, and the statistics are in many ways backing this up in terms of the reported cases or the increase in cases of anxiety and depression, especially amongst men. The rate of suicide amongst men, it's the highest demographic of suicide, is men between the age of, I believe it's 18 to 35 years old.
Wow.
More than any other, 3 times higher than any other demographic out there. So a lot of the statistics are proving this. We're just now starting to become aware of the fact that we're overcompensating.
Yeah.
Because...
And social media has made it worse. And there's a lot of good that can be done. And I talk about that a lot. Even you use it to impact people's lives, to speak your message. You are vulnerable. And there's such a blessing in that ability to do that. But on the other hand, it's like there's this comparison. So you talked about society. Well, society's only got louder when it's on our phone 24/7.
Right. Ego thrives off of competition and comparison.
Yeah.
And so what does social media do? It has us constantly comparing ourselves to other people. Our nervous systems were never designed to compare ourselves to literally millions of people around the world. It's just not set up to function in that way. It's too much for our system, which is why historically we've operated best. I realize it's kind of a subjective term, but best in small tribes, because you're not in competition or you're not comparing yourself to people who are on the other side of the world, for example.
Right.
But social media has taken down and removed all of those barriers. And so now we're comparing ourselves to people that we don't even know, which creates a ton of anxiety, which creates a ton of depression, which creates a ton of psychological problems that people do not know how to deal with.
Yeah. So you went through this. After sharing this, and I've experienced what I call a vulnerability hangover.
Sure.
So I have a similar story my way, and I went and shared on a Facebook Live with 83 people. I had this Facebook group with like 2,300 people, and I shared my story and my father in prison and drug dealer and how I became that, how I went to jail, and just a lot of vulnerable things about my story. And when I got done, I felt doses of what you are describing. I felt so overwhelmed, and what did I do? I just made like the biggest mistake of my entire life. Like everyone's gonna, know that like I'm this or that or judge me, or like all these thoughts went through my head that created panic, that created anxiety. Luckily that didn't stick with me for long, because shortly after, literally within hours, applications started coming in for the thing that I flopped that was supposed to be a pitch, but yeah, people connected with me on and wanted to be a part of. And that helped me get through it, right?
Yeah.
But you went through that, and I think that I know what you're saying is true, because I know anxiety and depression and stress are at an all-time high.
Yeah.
I know that many people listening to this are facing that. When I was in my young 20s, I went through the worst panic attacks of my life. I mean, to the point where my legs would like get numb. Like I'd be freaking out. I went to the ER for a panic attack. Like it was that bad.
Sure.
Going to doctors, all that, what's wrong with me.
Yep.
And I had to go through a season of that. You've had to walk through that. And I know you help men with that. So can you walk us through what you did in your journey and how to help us today get through that?
The answer is I did a lot of things.
I'm trying to pull the gold out here.
Totally. Yeah. So fundamentally, the approach that I take in working with men is very holistic. It incorporates all different facets of who we are when it comes to an approach to health. So mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, financial, all of those different things that go into making up our overall health. But what I did, which most men refuse to do, is I went into the heart of my pain. Most men think that you can achieve your way to your full potential. That's not true, because more only makes you want more, and the next level only makes you want the next level.
Yeah.
Which is why so many men, especially in the entrepreneurial space, the coaching world, they will become hyper successful, and yet on some level, because I know this, I coach a lot of these men, they all say the same thing. Why am I severely unhappy?
Because they keep getting more, yet they're still there. Why am I severely unhappy? Why am I depressed?
Why am I incredibly unhappy? Why on some deep level do I feel empty and unfulfilled? And that's when my work begins. Because the minute you know who you're really dealing with, the man behind the curtain, that's when you're ready to begin. It's a paradox. The way up is the way down. Before Jesus ascended into heaven, where did he go? He descended into hell. It's a metaphor to paint a picture of what we ultimately have to do in order to, say, achieve salvation or live up to our true potential, as many, posture in the coaching space nowadays.
Yeah.
It's a paradox. The way up is the way down. Deconstruction and then reconstruction. If you're on any spiritual schedule or personal development journey, at a certain point in time, all of your strong willpower and all of the mental resources that you have developed to conquer, to be victorious in the pursuit of power, possession, and prestige, all of that stuff essentially has to go. This high performer persona that most men take on in an effort to become successful was always meant to fall apart. That's what I did, is I started to take off all of the masks that I started to unconsciously take on after I was sexually abused. So that's where everything started, if you really think about it. I started to wear all of these masks in an effort to self-protect so that I could never be taken advantage of again.
Right.
So I started acting as if. I acted as if I was fine. I acted as if I had it all together.
Right.
I acted as if I was successful, even though internally I was none of those things.
Wow.
I was empty. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was unfulfilled. And yet I was constantly posturing that I was all of these other things.
And it's tough, right? Especially being a man, there's this cultural conformity that you have to be this certain way. You have to make a lot of money. You have to be driven. You have to be successful, and things that I think are great. But I think that you're right. Many of us are wounded in our childhood, and we carry that wound into our adulthood, and we never get delivered from it. We never get set free from it. We never heal it. But like you said, we stack on, if I just get the perfect job, career, business, and make millions, and I have the pretty wife, and I have the big house, and I have the big car, all that stuff from my past, like it'll be fine. Cause like I got all these things, and society says if I get these things that I'll be happy. I watch the TV commercial. But the truth is, men get to that point and they're like, this isn't right.
Because they're performing their way around the pain.
And I think performance is still a great thing. I think that
it is.
I want to say that for the record, because I'm a very driven guy. But if you don't go down, like you said, and deal with that, and I had to go through that. I had to be walked through with mentors. And my dad's coming home from prison on Wednesday. He's been in prison my entire life. There's some new stuff surfaced, and I'm like, oh, wow. We gotta go get healed from this. And I think it's gonna be such a reconciliation, like a moment between him and I that I think is gonna be so powerful.
I bet.
But let's talk about that, because there's guys that are like, all right, Jake, I hear you, bro. I don't tell anybody this, but I have this wound. I'm tired of making more money, but still feeling empty inside. What advice would you give to that man?
I would probably start with the question, who would you be without the need to perform?
Who would you be without the need to perform? I feel like, so basically, if you didn't have to show up in this way that everyone else wants you to show up, or you think they want you to show up, How would you show up?
Because what we're talking about, when you really break it down, is the concept between the true self and the false self. You said it perfectly when you mentioned that all of these things go back to childhood. Because you are correct. We're all wounded in childhood, even if we've never experienced big T trauma, abuse, assault, anything like that. Because trauma is much more about how we have internalized what has happened to us, the stories and the beliefs that we make up about it. So it could be an offhand comment that, your cousin made to you about, you in comparison to one of your other siblings, that you internalized as evidence that I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to measure up to my sibling.
Yeah, and then you've carried that.
Correct. And then you carry that around with you. If you don't reconcile that, you're going to constantly have something to prove and something to protect. And that's where overcompensating comes in. That's where these adaptive coping mechanisms come in, so that you don't have to deal with that unresolved pain. But the pain is always there waiting for you at the next level, no matter what.
Yeah.
So in childhood, we become who we think we need to be in order to be loved, accepted, and successful. The false self. So our personality, and persona is a Latin word for mask. We start to wear all of these different masks, some of which, of course, are genuine, but a lot of which are simply compensating strategies, who we think we need to be. That's what has so many men chasing after success or achievement. Not that there is anything inherently wrong with success or achievement, like you mentioned. I think in many ways, those are good things. It gives men purpose.
Yeah.
It drives them. It motivates them. All of us need to have a relationship with something that is so much bigger than ourselves. That's not the issue. The issue is, what is the unconscious motivation that is driving that behavior, that is driving your ambition or your aspirations, that at the end of the day, regardless of whether or not you end up achieving those things,
right,
leave you empty and wanting. And that's where most men are when they come and find me.
There's two things that came to mind there. One, because I don't want to forget it, I just want to bring up.
Sure.
There is a man, because I've met them, that's like, I probably am overcompensating, but that's how I've gotten where I'm at. And they're afraid of even letting it go. I'm sure you run into that.
All the time. When you start to do this deconstruction work, which is at the heart of everything that we're talking about right now, pretty much everything that you built as a result of that kind of needs to fall apart, because you start to realize that the life I've built, the lifestyle that I have created for myself, some of it might be genuine, but a lot of it is a result of this need to overcompensate.
Yeah. And often there's a level of wanting validation and approval. I see that's a very common one. So often the overcompensation is, I just want to be validated. And I think that there's so many men that are scared of, if I don't perform at this capacity, deep down they won't say it, but I won't get the same validation.
Probably. I mean, honestly, if someone came to me and they said that to me, I would probably firstly acknowledge them for the amount of awareness that they have, because most men don't even know that they're doing that, that's what is actually...
I have had to walk through that. That's why I'm speaking to that,
Sure.
And I have great people in my life, and there was a time in my life where I'm like, wow, a lot of this that I do is because deep down there's a wound, and I want validation and I want to be accepted, because as a kid, not having my dad in the way I grew up, I never felt accepted, so I never felt validated. So if I just perform at this level, then they'll just like me, they'll validate me,
right,
and I won't feel like my life doesn't matter.
Right. And then you'll find yourself wearing a hat that says king on it. That's kind of a little joke.
Yeah.
But it's rampant.
Yeah.
Men needing to affirm themselves because on some deep inherent level they weren't affirmed. And so, of course, this manifests in all sorts of developmental problems and issues where men are hyper successful. They've accomplished a ton when it comes to material things or financial success, but they don't know peace.
Yeah.
They don't know peace. I have yet to meet a man who has not walked through the fire. And I don't mean that you've overcome hardship and challenge, because everybody's experienced those things on some level to some degree. But you've actually had the courage to face these shadow parts of yourself that most people desperately are trying to avoid, whether they're aware of it or not. I've not met a man that hasn't significantly simplified their life.
How does one reach that place? Because I see it a lot, man, and it's tough because I'd say I actually see very few men that know how to truly have peace in their life.
If you've ever created, any tangible level of success for yourself, because I realize success is very subjective, but you kind of start to key on to the fact that, your problems just get bigger as you grow. Yes, you develop more resilience to be able to handle those problems and address them, overcome them, whatever you want to say. But at a certain point in time, I think all of us get to this place where we're like, okay, I can choose my suffering. What suffering am I going to choose? Meaning, what do I want my problems to be on a daily, monthly, annual basis? Because so many people get to this place when they really start to do this work, they start to relax. And what do we do when we're relaxed? We embrace the things that come most naturally and that are authentic to us. We're not chasing after like another client or another zero in our bank account.
Right. Which never brings true fulfillment.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. But in the first half of life, we think that.
Yeah. Until you get it, and then you're like, oh.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Which
Which is why the focus is so much on power, possession, and prestige. We were always meant to break out of that mentality where we're focused on answering the question, what do I want? And then we start to ask ourselves the question, what can I contribute? And that's where we become attached.
And that's where fulfillment comes in, I believe.
Totally, because it's so much bigger than me.
Through contribution.
Correct. What I am doing or what I'm in service of is so much bigger than me. It's not about Jake Kauffman. It's not about Cody Caudill.
Yeah.
It's about the work, whatever that work is, which is, I think, why I hesitate to answer the question, like, who is Jake Kauffman whenever I'm asked that on a podcast?
Yeah.
Because what is most important to me is this work first.
It's the contribution.
Correct.
And it doesn't have, and that's a good outlook on it. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's what can we contribute. And I believe that there's a purpose that was given to us.
Totally.
That is our contribution. It's only through the giving of that purpose that we experience that fulfillment. But you're saying, hey, you can't get to that point if you don't reconcile the things that you're still carrying, that you're overcompensating for, that's keeping you from being your true authentic self. Is that on point?
100%. Because you will still have something to prove and something to protect.
That's powerful, man. I love this. Take us through the journey. So you had to reconcile something big.
Totally. I was running from this pain and how it impacted me. Because it shattered my confidence, it shattered my self-esteem, it shattered my trust in other people, and rendered me arguably incapable of deep connection and intimacy. Because like I shared earlier, I received it as a threat to my nervous system. Despite the fact that there was not a threat, my nervous system
So I love how you break down. There's a physiological.
Absolutely.
So you're getting into the science of the body too,
Correct.
Physiological, but then also mental.
Yep.
And then even spiritual, right? All of those areas were harmed.
100%. And so, because trauma creates a fracture and it has us distort things, not be able to experience things as they are. We experience them as we are. We experience thousands of thoughts per day. What determines the ones that we believe? The state of our nervous system.
It's good.
That's what determines them. For me, I had to wrestle with, through the addressing of my pain, all of the different ways in which I was overcompensating, which is to merely say self-protecting.
Yeah.
I desperately needed to be accepted after that because I wasn't accepted. In fact, I experienced the opposite of that. I experienced an intense amount of rejection. And so the reason the book is titled The Pain Stops When the Truth Starts is because the number one goal of the ego is to hide the truth from you. The best way for it to do that, back up. The number one goal of the ego is to maintain the status quo. And the best way for it to do that is to hide the truth from you.
So good.
To keep things in your blind spot. That, hey, I'm just super determined. I'm incredibly assertive. I'm a success-driven, growth-minded individual.
Yeah.
Justified behind the guise of being incredibly insecure.
Yeah. Which is a lot of guys.
Which is most men. We kind of all have to walk through the fire of that.
I honestly haven't met a single man that, whether they'll admit it or not,
Sure.
hasn't had to or isn't walking through this?
I mean, they've actually done research studies on this. The Harvard School of Business has determined that incredibly successful men have three things in common, one of which is they're incredibly insecure.
Yeah. And ladies, I'm not leaving you out of this either, because I think y'all walk through the same thing, just saying for the record.
In a different way.
In a different way. Being a woman's hard too, man.
I mean, again, it might look a little bit different, but, tangibly speaking, in the world of men nowadays, we're experiencing one of two extremes. We're experiencing the passive man who is incredibly prone to people pleasing. And then we have this high performer man or hyper masculine man.
Yeah.
Both of them are doing the same thing, just in opposite directions. It just looks slightly different. The problem is we're demonizing, either side.
Right.
Without realizing the bigger picture or tapping into the bigger picture of what is actually going on here. Both are running from something. It's just manifesting itself slightly different. That's all. The pain stops when the truth starts. When all of a sudden you uncover and you discover the unconscious motivation, because the unconscious mind is reality, not the conscious justifications that we give our behavior.
Right.
Because many men are doing this, right?
And you would say the unconscious mind is truth.
Correct.
Because truth's always running. Like that, the unconscious mind we talk about in conscious mind, kind of like the supercomputer running in the background.
Correct.
You're not acknowledging what's actually running.
Yes. The conscious mind is actually connected to what we say, but the unconscious mind is connected to what we do. And that's why for most people, their lyrics don't match their music. They say they want something, but their behavior is not congruent with that outcome.
Yeah.
And so in order to create congruence between those things, we have to go into the unconscious mind, which always requires a guide. If we expect to unveil or reveal these internal limitations, these blocks, these barriers that we talked about with regard to Rumi, your task is not to search after love, but go after and discover the barriers that exist in you and between love. That's the task. It's the task within the task that Richard Rohr talks about so beautifully. And so the moment the truth comes to the surface, which is hidden in the unconscious mind, that's when we can start to do something about it. Otherwise, we're just treating the symptoms.
Yeah, that's so good. And so when you talk about forgiveness in the book, and I believe that you got a call from a guy that wanted that, like to give that to you and ask for your forgiveness. And that sparked something in you that went on a journey. And you went out, I believe, to LA. Was it?
So it was through the acknowledgement of my abuse that I realized, okay, I need to change.
Yeah.
And I arguably didn't know how to do that, because no matter how much I went to church, no matter how much I prayed, no matter how much I read scripture, I was still repeating these patterns because the underlying internal motivation was hidden from me. And so I needed to seek out something. I'm not saying that you should stop going to church. Let's be very clear about that. Or you should stop praying or reading the Bible. But I needed to find something more specific with regard to what I was dealing with. And that sent me down the road to personal development, which had me move out to Los Angeles to begin with, because I attended a workshop which basically revealed all of what we're talking about. No, I shouldn't say all of what we're talking about, but most of what we're talking about today in terms of the ego and the motivation of the ego and how it seeks to keep us trapped in comfort. And that's when I really started to change. That's when all of the awareness that I was coming into started to manifest itself in my behavior, and it became, what we would refer to as embodied.
Yeah, that's powerful. And do you believe that forgiveness plays a huge part in the journey of reconciliation?
Absolutely. I think it's ironic, isn't it, how in many ways forgiveness is the ultimate hit to the ego.
Yeah. Especially if the thing that you're forgiving for, which usually is something that maybe you had no part in, 5% part in, but a level of I'm still going to choose to forgive for this.
Yeah, I think if you spend enough time healing, eventually you will be prompted to forgive.
Yeah.
It'll be this natural, organic byproduct of the internal work that you are doing within yourself. I'm never going to tell someone to forgive someone. because that can often come at the cost of them bearing the full weight of what actually happened to them and acknowledging the significance that it had. They'll eventually get there themselves. They will, if they continue to do this work enough and continue to choose into healing. Because like you mentioned, with your dad getting out of prison in a few days, healing from the past, we're simultaneously incurring new wounds in the present. And this is why sanctification is so powerful, because we realize that this journey is never ending and it's never going to end, right? Until, we die, or, we get to heaven and we're, in the presence of God. It's never going to end. In nature, we call it evolution. In religion, we call it sanctification. It's never ending. It's constantly happening. And so there's always going to be this need to step into healing. Our ego is going to convince us that we can go to like a 3-month, mastermind, or, hire a coach for 6 months. And then, we're going to be a fundamentally different person after that.
To fix the problem? Or you mean I have to go on a lifelong journey of healing?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
we're also groomed for instant gratification.
Of course. I mean, I brush my teeth twice a day. I shower pretty much most days. So it makes sense then that I would also do the same when it comes to we'll call it mental health, mental, spiritual health. Same is true for, your physical health. If you don't use it, you lose it. If you're not consistent in going to the gym, you're going to have a really hard time building muscle.
Right.
Building the necessary resilience that you need in order to make progress, tangible progress. The same is true in our mental and our spiritual development.
Yeah. So you teach men how to do this.
I do.
And once a man has gone through a journey with you of learning how to heal and reconcile wounds so they can be their true selves, they learn how to take the mask off and show up. They find a level of peace in their life. Then what's next for them? I know it's a continued journey.
Sure.
I know we hit on that, but I'm sure there's even beyond that you take men through.
Reconstruction.
Okay.
Yeah. Construction, deconstruction, reconstruction. In the construction process, we become aware. We become aware of what makes up the walls of our own self-imposed prison. Deconstruction is tearing down those walls, breaking through them.
Ouch.
Reconstruction is now that I have done that, because like I said before, I have never met a man that has gone through this who has not fundamentally simplified his life or made significant changes to his life that causes him to prioritize peace over power, possession, and prestige. Doesn't matter that those things are no longer important, but he's no longer chasing after those things,
right?
Pining after those things.
You're not saying a man can't be successful,
right?
But you're saying that's not the pursuit or the objection or the objective or goal. They're searching for peace in all areas, and if they have overflow of those things, then it comes.
Yeah, it's the paradox. How do we get what we want? We stop wanting. Because what do we do when we stop wanting? We relax. And what do we do when we relax? We do the things that are most natural to us, most authentic to us. We always secretly gravitate towards that which we love the most. And so you do that enough, and what's the natural byproduct of that?
I mean,
success.
100%. And if you default to if you be your true self and you find peace and you default to these things, those things you default to are probably the things you're the best in the world at.
And the most passionate about.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's actually a good practice. I just saw a correlation of dots here. Oftentimes I see people, I just don't know what my purpose is.
Sure.
And it's almost like there's a guide in the room right now that's like, hey, let's reconcile, let's find peace, let's heal, and then let's see where you navigate to from there.
100%. Absolutely. I'm always encouraging my clients, what do you do that no one has to push you to do?
Write that down.
What are the things that you do that nobody has to push you to do? Start to pay attention and take stock, take inventory of those things, because there is probably something in there for you. Nobody has to push me to cook. I love cooking beyond just, of course, I do.
See a good cook?
Beyond just like getting food on the table for the family, for the kids. But I love it as an art form. And I love it because it brings me peace and it brings me fulfillment. It allows me to be creative. And, really exercise a different part of my brain than when I'm working on my business or in my business. So nobody has to push me to do that at all. I do that all on my own accord. It just is a natural expression, byproduct of who I am and when I'm operating in my authenticity. Most men aren't doing that.
Yeah.
How many times do you hear that I just kind of fell into it when they talk about their career, or because somebody told me I could make money doing this,
right,
or I could be really successful at this? But do you actually really genuinely love it? If we really boil it down, like, are you happy? Are you at peace with your life, with what you're doing? Are you connected to purpose? Like you mentioned, pain blocks us from purpose. And so
it's good.
Whenever men come to me and they talk about needing support in reaching their goals, we can't just start talking about their goals. We have to talk about what is preventing you from manifesting those goals. What's getting in the way? That's where that conversation has to start. So in answer to your question, where do we ultimately guide men if they go through this work, is this reconstruction component where all of a sudden they start to naturally gravitate towards the things that they love the most, that come most natural and authentic to them. And then we say, okay, how can we monetize this? That's what Ikigai is when you think about it. It's a combination of what does the world want, what does the world need, what am I most passionate about, and what am I good at? It's your reason for being, right? It's no longer, like, your vocation is no longer the full ledger, if you will.
So good.
It's no longer the full ledger. It's in the pursuit of peace, which is also just to say that in the pursuit of God or my true and authentic self, what do I do most naturally and authentically?
And what's powerful is really when you get far enough down the rabbit hole of building business, you actually find out that making money is not hard.
No, it's not.
And if you build avenues to wealth that aren't true to your authentic self, you'll lack that fulfillment, that purpose, and that meaning that you're talking about. And it's like, I love what you said, like, what would you do if nobody was telling you to do it? So once you get someone to that place, now it's like, who are you and what comes natural? And let's go build that thing. Because when you get there and you make the money, it's like we have this smorgasbord of opportunities in the world.
Right.
And this thing, oh man, he's a millionaire in real estate. Sure. I should go do real estate.
Real estate, right?
Right. And it's over and over and over again. And man, it's hard not to do that sometimes. You know, you see your buddy from high school, and he's not smarter than me.
Sure.
Oh, he's crushing it. I should go do real estate.
Oh, totally.
Then you get there and you're like, wait.
Oh, I can speak from experience around this, because wouldn't it be awesome if I had like Airbnbs all over the country and my favorite places in the country that I could like monetize as a stream of income, but then I could go visit whenever I want. Coming from someone who's done that, there are a lot of hangups with that when you are 1,800 miles away from one of your properties and all of a sudden the pipe bursts. And you're like, can I trust the management company to fix this, in the right way? So there's always going to be, different problems that just don't resonate with the life that you want to build. But when you're stuck in this level of consciousness that is seeking to perform your way around the pain as this like covert attempt to outrun it, it always ends up coming to find you. Always. And so many men find themselves wearing these golden handcuffs where they've created this incredible business or they've achieved some level of success and they need to keep maintaining it.
Yeah, now they're on a rat wheel.
Right, because now all of a sudden you have employees, and people's salaries at stake, right? And now it's people's families, and now you feel this pressure, right, to keep up that pace.
It's that pressure cooker.
100%.
And there's something important. You said it earlier, and I meant to bring it up, but now that we're here back on the pressure cooker, that pressure's got to get relieved.
100%.
And those are usually where we go to the bad habits.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy to, demonize like the top three coping mechanisms, porn, drugs, and alcohol because of their inherent negative side effects and felt impact, ripple effect on other people and how that shows up in our relationships. But so many men are doing the same thing with work, for example, justified behind the guise of legacy, providing for the family, working out, being obsessed with health and fitness, justified behind the guise of being health conscious. Even caretaking and serving other people can be the result of neurotic behavior and an attempt to avoid my anxiety, justified behind the guise of being a servant leader or being servant-hearted, being so generous and so giving. I know a lot of people like that. It's the unconscious motivation beneath the conscious external behavior that we want to focus on, because that tells us the truth.
You're not saying like be self-aware of where you're outletting this, but let's go deeper to the unconscious motive that's driving that conscious behavior.
Correct.
And let's go deal with that.
Absolutely, yeah. Because like we established, so many men are rich materially, but poor in happiness. Rich in money, but poor in happiness. It's a pervasive issue. And that's why men's work, I realize there's like a lot of talk around men's work today, but traditionally speaking, men's work starts with the question, what have you been doing with your pain?
Well, man, we're getting low on time here, and I just want to keep going.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. It's been a journey that you've taken us on today. I know that there are people that want to connect with you after this conversation. And like recapping some things just to tie some things together, guys. I really learned from you today, and I think the audience did, how important first the self-awareness is. You talked about construction, deconstruction, reconstruction, and in that, you're a guide. That seems like what you're doing, the way that you're serving. In the beginning, your core values, your service to society is, hey guys, I've been here.
Yeah.
I've went on this journey. I had to get a guide, and now I'm a guide to others that want to go on this journey. How do people connect with you if they want guidance in this?
So the best way to connect with me would be on Instagram. My handle is I am Jake Kauffman. Otherwise, you can always go to my website, which is awakewithjake.com. We'll be sure to put all the links in the show notes. Otherwise, if you're interested in purchasing the book, you can always find that on Amazon. Let Love In, The Pain Stops When the Truth Starts by Jacob Kauffman. That's Kauffman.
So good. Getting a guide so important, and then taking on those walls, guys, and doing that. And, it is a continued journey. As soon as I think I've arrived at certain things, I realize how much farther I have to go. It's like hitting a mountain peak just to find out, there's a bunch more peaks I got to climb still.
Our mountains, most men think that our mountains exist so that we can conquer them, when in reality, our mountains were always meant to mold us.
Yeah, the best part of a hike's, it's the journey. Once you get to the top, it's all right. But it's really, the journey, how hard it was getting up there and who you became in the process. Absolutely. Well, Jake, you are amazing, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. That God does have a calling on your life, that there is a purpose there. And it's cool to see the perspective that you bring to conversation. So we appreciate you so much. We'll have to have you back again. And I'm just excited to see what's next. And on that, I'll end with this question. What is next for you?
It's going deeper into this. In many ways, I'm just beginning. I'm just getting started. This is kind of just a warm-up, actually. Your girlfriend, Esther, asked me if there were more books, in my future, and I told her that I was already starting to
author
write
talk there.
Totally. Yeah, I told her that I was already starting to write my next one, up in my head. So I haven't actually put pen to paper yet. But, giving this book its due diligence and its time in the limelight, because this book is about me, but it's not meant for me. It's meant for other people. It's a book about healing and how to access that, how to do the work.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, guys, go get the book, read it. It's a powerful, powerful read, and go connect with Jake.
Thank you so much, Cody. This was awesome.
Awesome. Guys, go make today great.